Okay, so this is video diary number 2 on the 23rd of January 2020. Today was a good day. Didn't get up to much, went out for coffee with Mum, and we've been cutting out more things for her classroom. She lied to me, she said I wouldn't have to do any more, but then she found some more things that she thought would be really nice for her classroom. So I helped her cut those out tonight. We've still got a lot to do. She did the numbers 1 through 50 on butterflies, and they're not easy to cut out, so really looking forward to having to do the rest of those. Tonight I think I'm gonna kind of talk about high school and what happened, especially in those last 2 years of high school, so year 11 and year 12. I kind of talked about it a little bit last night, but I didn't really get into too much detail. I probably won't go into a lot of detail because a lot of it's really embarrassing. A lot of it is stuff I severely regret, and I still find it really hard to talk about and admit to because I was just an absolute idiot. I was a horrible person. So I really struggle to talk about year 11 and 12 and what happened. So I don't know if I mentioned this last night, but I kind of have this thing where at the beginning of the year I think I did mention this, the New Year's resolution, and year 11's was I want to get a boyfriend. I talked about how I followed kind of in the footsteps of this girl to make boys like me, and they didn't like me, but they liked what I was doing. I think that would be a fair statement. And I did things I severely regret. It was a way of harming myself. I remember, I don't know if I've forgotten what I talked about last night. I remember talking to a friend and them saying to me, that we were talking about self-harm or something, and I said something along the lines of, there's other things than just physical self-harm, and I remember thinking the reason I said that is because of exactly what I was doing to myself. I was putting myself out there for guys to like me, and it was very self-destructive. It made me feel like shit. I still don't think I've fully healed from what happened. It's affected my relationship with my ex-boyfriend a little bit. What I did, it just kind of, one day that was the decision I made, was to follow in the footsteps or in the lead of this girl in my class. And there happened to be a boy there who I'd known since, he was a year younger than me, and I'd known him since year 7 his year 7, because he was friends with one of my friends, and we hadn't really talked that much, but he was, kind of good looking, and I just kind of decided I was going to go for it. So I started acting overtly sexual around him to get his attention, and it worked. And it made me feel like shit. It made me feel like the only way guys were ever gonna like me was if I behaved that way. So I did that with him. He was probably the first and the biggest, he was my first kiss. We weren't ever officially dating, but he was a lot of my firsts. We never had sex, but I thought everything that I was doing was what he wanted, and he had no idea what the hell was going on, so I in no way blame him. There's this girl that's coming on to you and is acting like she wants to do these things. How are you meant to know what messed up stuff is going on in her head? So the next guy that I kind of flirted with, this one ended really badly. Nothing ever happened, just an exchange of pictures, not even nudes, like it was just me in my bra. And that photo that I sent him ended up getting to my dad, because he sent it around. He went to a separate high school. He sent it around his high school, and one of the boys there was working with my dad at like this big supermarket, and he recognized me in the photo, and he went up to my dad and he was like, is this your daughter? So that was, I'm forever grateful. It could have been a lot worse. It could have been it could have been a nude or something, but I'm still severely embarrassed by that. I don't trust anyone anymore. I guess that it was a life lesson that I had to learn that way. So yeah, that got sent around. I don't think it reached many people in my school. I think the worst thing that happened was that it reached my dad. And then the third thing that happened, the third guy, was the one I'd end up going on to have a relationship with. His name is Jack. We dated from the beginning of year 12 till we broke up about 6 months ago. And I had a crush on him since year 9, so I do love telling this story. He and I are best friends, so I don't mind talking about him. But in year 9, I remember we were at this kind of awards ceremony thing, and I was watching a YouTuber, Vanos Gaming, and I was kind of like, because my name, I think he was right after me if we were sitting in alphabetical order, and I kind of went to the boys in front of me who I was friends with, and he was kind of sitting behind me. I went, does anyone want to watch Vanos Gaming with me? And he said, yeah, I'll watch it with you. And we watched the video, and I remember he made so many jokes that really made me laugh, and that's when I first started having a crush on him. I've got this massive problem. I don't think so much now as when I was younger, where as soon as a guy was nice to me, I'd think they liked me. I still kind of have that occasionally where, like, if someone is constantly nice to me, I'll be like, oh, maybe they like me. But no, I know that there's just nice people in the world. Just because someone's nice to you does not mean that they have any feelings towards you. It means they could have just been brought up properly. I think it was because I suffered a lot of bullying from guys, or teasing from guys, especially when I was younger, that I kind of got that mentality of, when someone's nice to you, they're only nice to you because they like you, because no one else is nice to you. But yeah, I had a crush on him, and we started getting close towards the end of year 10. Him and my best friend at the time, I won't use her actual name, I'll use Clara. Him, Clara, and another one of our friends would all walk the same way home. I eventually was able to start walking that way to meet my mum at work, and yeah, he and I started spending more time together, even though it was in a group setting, and the crush intensified. I put myself out there, and it wasn't getting reciprocated. So I was kind of thinking to myself, okay, what can I do to get his attention? And this is one of the dumbest things I ever did. I severely regret it. Is I started lying about constantly getting drunk. Like, if it was a weekend and I came to school on Monday, I go, oh, I got so wasted on the weekend. To get his attention, like, I'd call him and pretend to be drunk, and like talk to him, and he'd get worried about me, and I felt important because he was noticing me. So I did that, and that was very dumb, and that led to probably one of the lowest points. Was that I didn't just tell him I was drinking. It was meant to be just between him and I, but he ended up telling my friend Clara. It got around the kind of group, and it got to a point where Clara and my other best friend, who, again, I won't use her real name, I'll call her Hannah. So Hannah and Clara got really, really worried about me, and they went and told the deputy principal, who I mentioned last night had come and pulled me out of class at one point to check on me. They went and told her what I'd been saying, because I think they had a gut feeling that I was lying about it, but how are they meant to know? I was constantly saying, yes, I'm getting drunk. So they were severely worried about what was going on. So they went and told the deputy principal. I got called out of class, and I went and spoke to her, and I just said, nope, everything's fine. She said she's really worried, and I said, nope, it's all good, don't worry. I didn't admit to her then that I was lying. I just kind of said, no, everything's fine. And then I left. This was when it was lunchtime. I left the deputy principal's office, and I went to where my friend group was, and I started crying, and Clara and Hannah came over, and they're like, what's wrong? And I said, oh, the deputy principal just kind of called me out, and she knows everything. Someone's told her what's happening. And they went, it was us. And I hate myself for doing this. I was so angry at them, because I couldn't believe that they went and told on me. It wasn't even entering my head that they were worried about me. It was all, I can't believe they did this. I thought I could trust them. I thought this was something that would stay between us. So I was extremely rude to them. And yeah, that was kind of, I think that was the lowest point. I think, if I remember correctly, Hannah's mum called my mum and told my mum what Hannah had said, and my mum was like yelling at me, and I finally broke down. Sorry, I've got a dog who wants to come up on the bed. Say hi, Boo. That's my little boy Boo. So, where was I? Yeah, so my mum was yelling at me and asking me, how I got the alcohol, because my parents aren't drinkers. I was saying my parents had all this alcohol, but they had nothing. I was saying that I would go to this really sketchy park that's kind of in our area. It's known as the park where all the kind of drug users go. And I was saying that I was paying someone to give me alcohol. And she was going off ahead. My sister was there, and she was going off it as well. And I just kind of sat there, and I was like, I can't keep telling this lie. It's gone too far already if I keep lying. So I just kind of went, it's all a lie. And my sister went, no, now you're lying. And I went, no. Now I'm telling the truth. It's all a lie. I've never gotten drunk. I still, to this day, 19 years old, have never gotten drunk. I never bought alcohol. I've never done any of the things I've said. It's all just a big lie. And I feel so freaking horrible about it that when I think about it now, I just kind of, that feeling you get in your chest where you just kind of want to implode into yourself. You just don't want to exist anymore. When I think about that moment, yeah, that's how I feel. And it kind of continued from there. That's when I ended up, not too long after, I was planning on committing suicide. Ended up going into hospital, and hospital kind of taught me how to be open and honest. I disappeared from school. One thing I'll be forever grateful to my friends for was that they didn't, and again, I feel so horrible for this, but I thought everyone was against me. I look back now, and I'm so grateful for them being there for me, but at the time I didn't care, or I didn't realise it. But they were very kind in lying to everyone and saying that, because I was gone for about 2 or 3 weeks of school, the last 2 weeks of school, and they lied to everyone and said I'd just gone down to Melbourne, because I'm born and raised in Sydney, just gone down to Melbourne for a family emergency or something. At the time I wasn't grateful for it, but I am very grateful now that it would have been so easy for them if they truly wanted to hurt me, which they never did, but if they truly wanted to hurt me, they could have told everyone, oh, you know, she's gone to hospital because she's suicidal. That would have really affected everything. I probably wouldn't have gone back to school if everyone knew why I was gone. I would have been too embarrassed because I was embarrassed that I was in a hospital for suicidal thoughts. So yeah, 3 weeks in hospital, and this is where Jack comes back into it. He and I got really close when I went into hospital, kind of leading up to hospital as well. Again, I was being overly sexual, and he finally started to reciprocate it. But he was worried about me. He was worried, and again, he didn't know what was going on. You know, again, it's the same with the first guy. You've got this girl coming on to you. How are you meant to know that she's doing it for self-destructive reasons? So, but he was more worried. He was more kind of aware what was going on. He knew I wasn't okay, but he didn't know how bad it was until I ended up in hospital. And, you know, leading up to this, as I said, I had a massive crush on him. I'd actually asked him out at one point, and he's like, I asked him. This was like the third or fourth time I was asking him, and I don't think I actually asked him out. I think it was more I wanted a reason why he didn't want to go out with me. Was it because I was ugly? Was it because I was annoying? Was it because there was someone else? I just wanted to know, to kind of get that anxiety to settle down. Was it something I could change about myself even? So I ended up going out, and I was having a great time. In my mind, I knew deep down that something wasn't right, because in the cinema I had my hand kind of open, waiting for him to hold my hand, and the entire time he didn't. And I thought, oh, maybe it's because he's shy. Again, I expect my life to play out like a movie. So, you know, your first date is they are so excited to see you. It's a little bit awkward. But yeah, nothing like that happened. It was awkward for all the wrong reasons. We went to go have lunch, and I don't even remember what was said leading up to it, but it came out that this was a pity date and he liked someone else. That really hurt me. I still don't get why he did it, but in his mind he was letting me down gently, but really it hurt more, because I thought I was finally in with a chance, and then he was like, no, I like someone else. I was like, okay then. It turned out he liked Clara, my best friend, but she didn't like him at the time of him and I going on that first date. I found out later on that when I was becoming overly sexual with him and he was finally reciprocating it, that she did start liking him. I didn't know, and Hannah said, isn't it obvious? But I genuinely, maybe because I was so wrapped up in my feelings for him, that I was completely blinded to what was going on with her. And another thing he did that really hurt me and affected my mental health, and it's because he's just a stupid boy, was we had I don't even know how to put this. We met up before school one morning and had a special morning. And I found out that day was the day he gave Clara a necklace. I think it had her name on it or something, or it was a love heart or something. That really hurt, because I thought I meant something. And then this is kind of how we get into him feeling really, I don't know if guilty is the right word, but when I ended up in hospital and he found out, I think because of the things that had happened with him and I leading up to it, he thought he played some part in it. And I guess you could say he did, but there were millions of different pieces to this puzzle and he only was a handful of them. So I don't blame him whatsoever. It was more my mental health. If I didn't have mental health problems, 90% of the stuff I did that year wouldn't have happened. Anyway, so I ended up going into hospital and he calls me in the morning on his way to school. He texts me during class. He calls me at recess, texts me again, calls me at lunch, texts me again, calls me on the way home, calls me before I go to sleep. And this was nearly every day while I was in hospital for that 3 weeks. He was in constant contact with me. And I remember him saying when I got out of hospital, you know, we'll hang out, we'll go to the movies or something. And in my head, because of everything previous that had happened, in my head I was thinking he's just being nice, he feels bad, so he just wants to hang out as friends and make sure I'm okay. And at the time I was okay with that. And one of the things that I loved and still do love about him is that even when I am in an absolute mess, I'm crying, I feel like the world is crumbling around me, I'm getting upset now, is he can always make me laugh. And that's what he did in hospital. I remember one night, because I have severe separation anxiety, I was really missing my parents one night and I was crying and crying and crying, and he was making jokes to make me laugh. And I remember still crying, I just went, shut up. And I said, I love you. And that was the first time I said, I love you to him. And because of everything previously I said, he didn't need to say anything back. And from memory, I don't think he did. Oh God, I'm crying. Stop it. But, you know, it was nice. He wasn't weirded out by it, I don't think, from memory. So I ended up coming out of hospital and he asks me out on a date. But again, I didn't think this was a date. But this time it went exactly the way I wanted it to. We met up. He said I looked beautiful. In the movie, he had his arm around me the entire time. We were being that gross couple. He was feeding me popcorn and getting me the drink, so I wouldn't have to reach over, and he could keep his arm around me the entire time. And at the end of the film, we had our first kiss. And that's when he said, will you go out with me? I think it was actually, God, it was around this time of year, 3 years ago, 2017. So that was year 11, and we started going out, and my friends Hannah and Clara weren't happy about it, and I get it because they knew exactly what had happened in year 11. They knew the hurt he caused me, so they didn't think it was a good idea, and fair enough. And something I actually left out about year 11, which makes me even more of a horrible person, that I just remembered. It was Hannah's birthday, and I was doing stuff with the original guy, and I just went off on her. Like, I started saying, why can't you just let me be happy? And she called me crying, and she said, how could you do this on my birthday? And I look back and I just go, I really do hate myself for that. I don't think an apology, I believe I've apologized for that. But I don't think an apology will ever be good enough. I said some really horrible things to her, and it was all about me in my head. She, in year 11 and 12, especially Hannah, needed my support, and I never gave it to her. I was extremely selfish, and we're no longer, neither Clara, Hannah are friends with me anymore, and I'll probably tell that story another night. But once you hear everything that I did to them, you'll completely understand, and you'll go, of course they wouldn't be friends with you. And I do not blame them whatsoever. I actually kind of admire their courage to be able to cut such a toxic person like who I was out of their lives. I'd like to think I'm not toxic anymore. Or I've got a friend who I did have in high school but wasn't one of my closest friends, who is my closest friend now. She says that I'm a completely different person, and that she likes me a lot more now. So I'd like to think that I've changed, but you know, I think the only people that I'd believe, if they told me I'd change would be Hannah and Clara, because I affected them the most. I treated them so shitty, especially Hannah. I was not there for her at all. I was there for Clara a lot more, because Clara was going through her own shit, but I wasn't there for Hannah. Not at all. So then year 12 rolls around and I've got a boyfriend, and we were that gross, disgusting couple kissing in the hallways, making out at lunch. And again, I truly hate myself and regret this so much. You know, I think I said last night I would never ever do a year 11 again, but if I could redo 1 year of my life, it would be year 12. And that's purely because I'd changed the type of person I was and the behaviours I did. They're not as regrettable as in they've still affected me, but they were just gross. We were that disgusting couple that was always holding hands and kissing. And I hate that so much, because now, towards the end of our relationship, or even once kind of we got out of high school, we didn't do any PDAs in public. And I just kind of wish we had that control. I don't know if that's the right word. When we were in high school, because I feel really bad for everyone who had to see that. You know, again, I wish my life played out like a movie, and you kind of watch some of those high school movies and they're big on the PDAs and the big acts of love and everything, and everyone thinks, oh, it's so cute, and they only joke about it. They're never genuinely grossed out by it. So in my head, I was going, why does anyone care? But now I get it. I'm like, oh my god, so friggin' annoying, and I really hate myself. Again, the biggest thing I did was let down my two friends. And this is another big story. I might even stop this video here and tell this on tomorrow night. But I'm going to probably tell the story of why specifically, or what the last straw was when I lost my two friends, Hannah and Clara. It was a lot of stuff leading up to it, but I think in the end, it was on a cruise that we took to celebrate graduating year 12. I'd like to think if I hadn't taken that cruise, we may not be friends, but I don't think we'd be in the same place we are now. But I guess I'll never know. So I think tomorrow night I might talk about specifically what I did to lose them as friends. And it's another thing I find really hard to talk about, because I just regret it so much. So I think I'm going to stop this one here. So this was video diary 2, 23rd of January 2020.